Good morning to you too. Okay, so I just wanted to start off by asking, are you all clear on the clauses part?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Any confusions? Or because I have seen a few questions on the forum also. I hope it would have been answered by now. That's how somebody might have answered it already. Any questions regarding anything that's related to clauses? Anything in general that you want to get clarified? Because I plan to do model verbs today with you. If there's anything that you need to discuss, you can ask me so that we have a brief discussion on that and then go to model verbs. And how do you find the model verb thing? Is it okay, or do you have confusions in that? I think for fourth week you must have something that is in writing. So uh, that shouldn't be a lot of problem for you. But then I'm just trying to understand, what topics you might have problems with. So figures of speech, I think we already did discuss for one of the class, and uh, discourse markers are easy. They don't require any questions from discourse markers.
No, ma'am.
No, anybody? Yeah. Rhythm and ticks, anyway, that's not something that is going to be really, but then you need to know how it is used. Then there's adverbs. I think we've worked on adverbs enough. So shouldn't be a problem. Tenses and aspects also fine. Passives, we did brief a few exercises on that, so that should be fine. Degree adverbs. Week two is mostly all adverbs and adjectives. Shouldn't be a problem. Um, anything on that? Some important concepts in adjectives. If you've already looked at it, then it shouldn't be a problem. Otherwise, okay. Clause sentence, clause sentence. Yeah. So I think you don't have that is only in week five, right? Model verbs. Yeah. Which week are you in? I mean, which week's video has been released for you for Friday, last Friday?
Last Friday was week 5.
Week five, right? So then I don't think we have to discuss model verbs right away then. So let me do one thing. If that's the case, I'm just trying to find out if model verb, and then I think I've seen somewhere that also is later on, that clause. Okay. Yes. So what questions do you, what part do you want to discuss? Because I think we have already discussed figures of speech we have done. We have done adverbs also. We have looked at clauses also, right? So in the first four weeks, you don't have anything besides this which needs a discussion on. Fourth week is a writing unit, so there's nothing to do with that. If that's the case, how about we do some practice?
Ma'am, we
What do
want
you think?
practice.
Okay, let me check if I have a practice document. I should have ideally. Let me see.
Ma'am, from week 5,
I think we
week
do
4.
have. Sorry?
Ma'am, from week 4, we
Ah.
have a writing section. So how the question will become from week 4?
You won't have any descriptive writing for sure, but they will ask you questions based on the lectures, right? Um, application you might get. So essays on reflection, lab manual, writing to influence, writing to argue. So, based on what you've heard in the lecture, they might ask you some questions. Okay. I am not sure exactly what the content was. Writing to argue, I think they will ask you like what are the techniques used while you write to argue. So you need to keep it more theoretical. I don't think you'll have application questions. Nothing to write also because we don't have any descriptive writing. It's mostly all MCQ. So just watch the lecture and make notes, okay, of what they're saying. And based on that, you might get some questions based on the lecture.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Where is my document? Okay. So I have few questions on clauses but this one has question tags. Why? Yeah, we have some passive voice constructions also and degree focus. Yeah, I think this should be fine. We can do this for today's class. Okay. I'll share the screen with you. So this is for practice. So you're going to look at it yourself. And when you need help, you're going to look at it. Okay, just a moment. I'll share the screen. Share. So yeah, screen's visible, right?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. So you can go through. The first one is relationship of clauses. Describe the relationship of clauses in the following sentences. Explain the functions of the subordinate clause. So basically, relationship of clauses, it's basically asking you which one is an independent clause and which one is a subordinate clause. And functions of subordinate clauses, basically asking you what kind of subordinate clause it is, whether it's adjectival or adverbial or noun clause. So we can do that. We already did it, I think, the past week. You can look at the sentences and you can give me the answers. Okay, first question. Savage gales cause another wave of destruction today after yesterday's storms left 14 dead and thousands homeless. So first thing, what is the independent clause? What is the subordinate clause? And if you have a subordinate clause, then what kind of a clause it is? Okay, please look at the sentence. Tell me when you're ready with the answer. Yes. Which one is the independent clause in this? Do I have you guys here or? Mm, complete sentence is an independent clause. No, the whole sentence is not an independent clause. It's a clause. But within the sentence, you have an independent clause. Which one is sentence till today? Mayuresh and Navneet and all. It would be nice if you can unmute and speak. Till destruction. Yeah. So please speak up, unmute yourself and tell me what is the independent clause in this.
Until storms is independent.
Uh,
Left.
louder. Is it just me or can others also hear you? Very feeble sound. Can't hear you properly.
And after that, these two are dependent. Until storm, it's independent clause. After that, it's a dependent clause.
Who is this? Ramanara, Saitija, we are not able to hear you. Can others hear him, or is it just me? Can others hear? His voice is low. Yeah, and I would like you guys to speak up. No, I'm looking at the screen, so I'm not going to go back looking at the chat every time. So please speak. Yeah, so Saiteja, you're not audible. I am struggling to understand what you're saying. Your voice is very, very okay. Yeah, others. Meanwhile, he'll fix it and come back. Maybe others, those of you here, what is your independent clause? Shouldn't be taking so much time for this. It's a long sentence, but it's not a difficult sentence. Sentence till today. Okay, I'm going to look at it, but then it's going to be impossible for me to keep looking at the chat. So you need to speak up, right? Savage gales caused another wave of destruction today. Yes, that's correct. That's your independent clause. And what's your subordinate clause in the sentence? Subordinate clause would be?
Yesterday's storm left 14 dead and thousands homeless.
Subordinate clause would be after yesterday's storms left 14 dead and thousands homeless, right? So because until today is your independent clause. So obviously the one that follows it has to be the subordinate clause, right? Okay. But fine. So what kind of clause is this one? And all of you need to see this is a practice session for you. I'm not doing the worksheet like we do it in the regular session. You're trying to understand this one. So if you're staying in the call, you please participate. Okay. After yesterday's storms left 14 dead and thousands homeless would be what? What kind of clause it is? Yes, this is a subordinate clause, but what kind of a clause is this? Is it noun or adjectival or adverbial?
Uh, it's indicate the
answers the
time, so
question.
it's a adverbial.
It is
It
adverbial.
might be
Absolutely right.
adverbial.
Yes, it is because it tells you the time, right? When did this happen? After yesterday's storms left 14 dead and right? So this is adverbial. We have another subordinate clause in this sentence. Can you tell me what that is? Or do we? Do we have another subordinate clause? No, right? We don't have anything. Savage gales caused another wave of destruction today is basically your,
Independent.
yeah, it's the independent clause, and there's no subordinate clause anywhere. How do you identify that there's no clause? Because there's no verb anywhere else, right? So if there's no verb, whether finite or non-finite, if there's the presence of a verb somewhere in the sentence, then definitely you can count that as a clause, right? But we don't have anything else. We only have two, which is one is the cause and the second is left, and the part with the verb left is your subordinate clause and the one with cause is your independent clause. Okay. So the number of count of the verbs is a good indicator of the number of clauses, right? Whether the verb is finite or non-finite, if there is a verb, then it is considered a clause. Okay. Second one, the London Weather Center warned that fierce winds would build up in the southeast and they might gust up to 70 mph. It's miles per hour. Okay. It is miles per hour. Yeah. So what is your independent clause here?
Am I audible? Hello.
So they might gust up to this one and the one previously written, right? The whole of that sentence. The London Weather Center warned that fierce winds would build up in the southeast is your first independent clause, and then you also have another one, which is they might gust up to 70 mph. This is the second independent clause, right? Two of them, because this is basically a compound sentence, two independent clauses joined together by the coordinating conjunction and, right? So obviously this is going to be, there's going to be at least two independent clauses. So two of these are the independent clauses, and what are the, which one is the subordinate clause in the sentence? Second one.
That fears
Winds would build up in the south.
Winds would build up
Ah,
in the
that
southeast.
fierce winds would build up in the southeast, right? That winds would build up in the southeast is your subordinate clause. What kind of clause is
Yes.
that?
It gives the direction, so it will be adverbial clause.
Fierce winds would build up in the southeast. Okay, look at it carefully. The London Weather Center warned that fierce winds would build up, and not adjectival, for sure.
now
Noun clause, yes. Because see, the London Weather Center warned what?
Is a noun.
Warned that fierce winds would build up in the southeast. So it's taking up what? I told you this when we were discussing. So it takes up the object position. So that whole clause acts as the object of the verb warn, right? So this one is a noun clause. That fierce winds would build up in the southeast is a noun clause. Okay. Then comes the third one. In Folkestone, the sea defense wall gave way, causing flooding of up to 5 feet, and police were considering evacuation. What are the independent clauses? Independent clauses for this one would be?
Police were considering evacuation.
That is one of it. Police were considering evacuation as your one of the independent clauses. And then the first
sea
part.
defense wall
Ma'am,
gave-
in the
In
sentence two,
Folkestone, the sea defense wall gave.
Yeah. So in Folkestone, the sea defense wall gave way, causing flooding of up to 5 feet. This is your second independent clause, right? So two independent clauses, because again you have and here. So it's a compound sentence. So two independent clauses. And then subordinate clause would be what?
Causing flooding of up to 5
Causing
feet.
flooding of up to 5 feet. Causing flooding of up to 5 feet. Now, is this what kind of clause is this?
Adjectival.
Adjectival, what is it, what is the noun it is modifying?
Defense.
adverbial, I think.
Is it
It will be
adverbial? So we are
adverbial.
going to discuss
Yes,
that.
yes.
Adverbial.
Adjectival or adverbial. So it's adjectival. Is it adjectival?
Don't think.
If it has to be an adjectival clause, then it needs to modify a noun. Is it modifying a noun anywhere?
No.
No, right?
Adverbial.
No noun.
Adverbial.
Okay. If it is adverbial, then it should give you
Gave
the
away.
time, place, manner, or purpose,
Gave
or
way.
reason, or something.
Gave away is the verb.
Gave way. No. Yeah. The sea defense wall gave way is not the verb. Gave is the verb, right? Give is the verb
Question,
and
yes.
hmm, hmm. So causing flooding of up to 5 feet would be what? It is not adverbial also. The sea defense wall gave way, causing flooding of up to, yeah, it is what more importantly we call as the non-finite. So yeah, you may say that this is adverbial clause with a non-finite clause. Causing flooding of up to 5 feet, okay, is more appropriately an example of a non-finite or an infinitival clause. But do you have that for, I need to check that. I am confused on whether you have a lecture on, I think you should, right? Because I remember discussing this. Okay, right. So whatever the case, you can say that this is an adverbial clause with a non-finite verb in it, right? Because you don't have when we say non-finite, we basically are saying that there is no verb which has a tense. Okay. So no verb with a tense. So adverbial clause, okay, we'll take it like that. Fourth one, in one town in North Wales, 1,000 people were made homeless, and the local council asked the government to declare the town a disaster area because the emergency services said that they could not prevent more damage. Big sentence, like a longish sentence, but see how you can figure out the independent. First, the independent clause. Look at what the independent clause is first, and then we'll discuss later.
First sentence fully ma'am.
The
First
first
sentence.
sentence till and
First,
Till homeless.
yeah,
till
correct.
homeless, yes.
Till
And
homeless.
then
Yes.
locals council.
Hmm. So the first
Till area.
part,
Disaster area.
Till
first part
area.
till homeless
Disaster
is
area.
your first independent clause, and then the local council asked the government to declare, so on and so forth, till the end will be your second independent clause. Okay, two independent clauses. So now, what about the subordinate clauses?
That
The emergency
they
service
could not
said that
prevent more.
Hmm. Yeah.
That
So
they
the
could
local
not
council asked
prevent.
the government to declare um, the town a disaster area because so that they could not prevent more damage. Yes, that is that's an example of subordinate clause. Yes, absolutely. More. So I'm just going to mark it for the sake of clarity. Okay. So this is your subordinate clause. Then what else do we have?
The emergency set services set.
The emergency services, no, that's not subordinate. You have to start from here in case you're starting. So because the emergency services said, right? So this is the case of an embedded clause. You have the largest subordinate clause, which is because the emergency services said that they could not prevent more damage. Within that clause, you have the that they could not prevent more damage. So two subordinate clauses. Any more? Any more?
maybe, ma'am, the government to declare the town a disaster area.
That's an independent
This
clause.
part, right? This part, which is why I was a little confused if non-finite was discussed. Okay, so since we are anyway discussing the number of subordinate clauses, it is good to look at it. So, and the local council asked the government to declare the town a disaster area. So, to to declare the town a disaster area because the emergency services said that they could not prevent more damage. This is your first subordinate clause within which you have because the emergency services said that so on and so forth, within which you have that they could not prevent more damage. Okay, so embedded clause, three subordinate clauses. Now, this one to declare the town a disaster area because so on and so forth. This is an example of what? It's a non-finite uh, clause. So this is to declare, right? It has two infinitive in it. Because the emergency services said, what will that be? It's giving a reason. So what is it then? Clause that gives reason is what?
Adverbial clause.
Adverbial clause. So this one is an adverbial clause. That they could not prevent more damage, what would that be? So because the emergency services said what?
Noun.
Noun, right? So you have a non-finite clause, okay? Then you have an adverbial clause, right? Then you have, just a moment. Okay, so to declare the town a disaster area, can you comment a little bit more on that? It is non-finite, but then what would it be?
It will be
Will that also not be a noun clause? Because see, if you look at the sentence, the local council asked the government to declare the town a disaster area because the emergency services said that, that long part. Okay. Um, you look at the sentence, the local council asked the government and focus on the verb asked, right? If you remember from the previous discussions, do you remember ditransitive verbs? Right? So ask is a ditransitive verb. You will have two objects. The local council asks the government. Okay. So you will have both a direct object and an indirect object. What they ask would be the direct object, and who was asked to or for whom it was done would be your indirect object. Remember this? I remember discussing this. If you remember, well and good. If not, please pay attention now. Okay. So this particular sentence has a ditransitive verb, which is ask. Ask can have two objects because it's a ditransitive verb. So one is direct and indirect. The local council asked what, right? Asked what? To declare the town a disaster area because the emergency services said they could not prevent more damage, right? So that whole part is the direct object of the verb ask. Indirect object is the government. Okay. So if it is an object, then what kind of clause will it be? Direct object is to declare so on and so forth till damage. This is a what kind of clause?
Noun clause.
Noun clause, right? So that whole of thing would be a noun clause within which you have the because the emergency services said that part until the end, till damage would be your adverbial clause, and that they could not prevent more damage because that is again an object of the verb stay. That will also be a noun clause. So two noun clauses and one adverbial clause. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
asked is a verb. Okay?
Ask is a bitransitive verb, right? It is going to have two objects. So see, I'll repeat, right? When you are discussing clauses, when you're trying to find out clauses, two things are very important. First is to look at the verb. How many verbs do I have? Usually the count of verbs will give you the count of clause. Now between clause, in the case of verb, because there are also finite, non-finite verbs, it is better always to look at your sentence structure first, right? First see what is the subject of the sentence, then locate the verb and locate the object. Right? If you do this analysis step by step, right, subject, verb, and then object, you will know where exactly your subordinate clause lies and what is the role that it is performing. If you break it down in this way, it is easier for you to understand the clauses. Okay. Some people can do it in different ways. Some people are good at looking at it in the form of verbs. So maybe they have good identification of verbs. If you can't do things in that way, the second method to do that is to break it down into the constituents, the subject and the verb and the object, and then see which part has the verb. Certainly will not be in the clause format. It's either the subject or the object that comes in the clause format, right? Clause template. So then you look at the parts on clause and see whether the clause given is an object to the verb, is it a subject to the verb, right? In both the cases it's going to be noun clause, right? And then within that, if you feel like it is acting, it is trying to give you information about the time, place, manner, reason, right? All of those things, then you can go ahead and mark it as an adverbial clause. If it is giving you more information or it is modifying the noun in the given clause, then you can say that it's an adjectival clause. Okay. So follow these 2-3 steps so that you don't get lost in this one. You will have questions
Yes.
on number of clauses. Okay. I hope you have understood it now. Any question?
It's clear now.
No.
Okay. Just keep that in mind. Now, the sentences from here on is, as you can see, they're very small. They're too short and they're also easy, I hope, right? Let's see. Fifth one. The jury believed that the man was guilty.
That the jury believed is the main clause.
Subordinate clause.
So, That the man was guilty is your subordinate clause. And what kind of clause is that? What kind of clause?
Noun clause.
Noun clause. Yes.
Noun clause.
Okay, noun clause. Come when you like. Come when
Come
you
is the
like.
main clause.
Come is okay. This is a sentence without a subject, right? So this is basically an imperative sentence. Come when you like. So which part is your
When you like
subordinate?
is subordinate.
When you like. Okay.
When you like is
Come when you
subordinate.
like. And that would be adverbial clause.
Adverbial. Yes.
Correct. Very. Now I know the girl who won the prize.
Who won the prize?
I know the girl who
Subordinate.
did when.
I
Who
know the
won
girl.
the
Main
prize?
clause.
Correct. And adjectival clause. Correct. He confessed that he
Yes.
was guilty.
That he was guilty. Subordinate.
He was guilty. Noun clause.
Noun clause.
I know you have great regard for him. I know you have great regard for him.
You have great regard for him.
Yes, you have great regard for him. Sometimes you might have this word here. I know that. Okay. But this is a non-restrictional clause. So you don't have to always have that. Even without that, you can say the sentence grammatically fine, right? I know you have great regard for him is same as I know that you have great regard for him, right? So in any case, with or without that, if there is that, then that will also be a part of the subordinate clause. Since it's not here, you have great regard for him as your subordinate clause, right? And this
Yes.
is
Noun.
a noun clause,
Noun
right?
clause.
Yes, correct. Now, do you think that I'm a fool? Do you think that I'm a fool?
That I am a fool.
That I'm a fool and
Noun clause.
so if you change this to a declarative, you think that I am a fool. Yes. So say whatever the answer was. Okay. So yes, I think you are a fool, for example. I think that you are a fool. So that I am a fool or that you're a fool is what in that sentence? The
Might be a
object of the verb
relative noun.
think, right? That's the same thing for the sentence also. Do you think? What do you think that I am a fool, right? You can answer the question what. So object of the verb think. Hmm? So this is a, what sort of a subordinate clause is this? Noun clause, right? If it is taking the place of the object, then noun clause. Before I die, I want to see Venice. Before I die, I want to see Venice.
Before I die,
Before I die, I want to see Venice. Yeah, yes. Before I die is your subordinate clause. And what kind of clause is that? Before I die? Before I die,
Adverbial.
it is an adverbial phrase. It's not a clause per se.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but okay, a clause because you have died. Before I die. Yeah, this is an adverbial clause. Okay.
okay, ma'am.
Before I die is an adverbial clause. So it mostly can even, so basically you can rearrange it. You can also say, I want to see Venice before I die. That's the point that they're trying to make. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world.
The hand that rocks
That
the
rocks
cradle.
the
The hand
cradle
that rocks.
rules the world.
That rocks the
Noun clause.
cradle. That rocks the cradle. Okay, only that part, not rules the world. The hand that rocks the cradle. That rocks the cradle. So that this part would be, what would that be?
Adverbial or
Adjective.
Not adverbial. Adjectival, right? Adjectival.
okay. Adjective. Okay, ma'am.
Correct. 13th one, I know a boy whose father serves in the army.
Adjective. Whose father serves in the army.
Whose father serves in the army. That's going to be adjectival. I will not go until he arrives.
Until he arrives.
Until he arrives.
Until he arrives, and this is what? Adverb.
Adverb.
Huh. The coffee maker that I bought for my wife is expensive.
That I bought.
That I bought
That
for
I
my
bought
wife.
from adjective.
That I bought for my wife. Yes. That is adjectival, not that I bought, that I bought for my wife. So how do you look at that? Because you should read it this way. The coffee maker is expensive. And then that I bought for my wife is what is qualifying the coffee maker. So that I bought for my wife is your adjectival clause. Okay.
Can
Okay,
it
ma'am.
be relative, ma'am?
Sorry.
Can it be a relative clause too?
It's the same thing. Adjectival clauses are also called as relative clauses. Same thing.
Ma'am, ma'am, can you just see the 12th sentence?
I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear you.
The 12th sentence, ma'am.
Hmm.
Can you? It was an idiom. So, what's the meaning of it?
12 students. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Not an idiom.
What does it mean, ma'am? What does
The
it
hand
mean?
that rocks the cradle is basically the one who can nurture you is the only one who can command you also. Someone who doesn't nurture you in any way cannot have any kind of say in what you become or what you should do, right?
Okay.
Why should you listen to them? So someone who's a mentor or someone who's a nurturer, okay, who's a provider is the only person who can set rules for you. So,
Thank you.
okay. Mm, not this one. Question tag you don't have now. We can look at the active and passive. Okay. Change the following active sentences into passive voice. I did not beat her. So passive voice, you need to know the passive morphology, which is be plus participle form. Past
She was not
participle
beaten by me.
She was not bitten by me.
Yeah, she was not beaten by me. Cannot be anything else because passive morphology for did would be plus did not beat because it's a negative sentence. It has to be be plus negation, which is not plus the past participle. So was not beaten. Sorry?
Nothing.
Okay. Second one, I will never forget this experience. I will
This
never.
experience will never be forgotten by me.
C option
Experience.
will never be forgotten by
Would
me.
C option.
Will never be forgotten by me. It will never be forgotten by me. Yes. Never be forgotten by me. Correct. Will never be forgotten. Mother made a cake yesterday.
C
A
option.
cake was made by
mother
A
mother.
cake was made. Yes, a cake was made by my mother yesterday. Why did this my, there was no okay, by mother. Yes, a cake was made by mother yesterday. The boy greeted the girl.
The girl was greeted by the boy.
Was greeted by the boy. Did she do her duty? Fifth one, did she do her duty?
Was she done her beauty?
Was her duty done by
Was her duty done by her?
Was her duty done by her?
done by her?
It's a very unlikely sentence. Nobody would use something like that, but grammatically possibly acceptable. Okay. The tiger was chasing the deer.
The deer was being chased by the tiger.
Option B.
The option.
Correct. Correct.
B.
The deer was being chased by the tiger. Option B. She has written a novel. She has written a novel.
A novel had written by
Third option.
Which option? Tell me the option number.
Third option.
A novel had written by her. No, that is wrong.
A novel has been
has
written
been
by her.
Has
written
been
by her.
written by
But
her.
has been written by her because it is has written. Passive morphology would be be plus past participle. So has been written. Novel has been written by her. Okay. She has learned her lessons. She has learned her lessons.
Her lessons have been learned.
Her lessons
Option B,
Has
ma'am.
been learned. Have been learned.
have been learned by her. Yes, B. Her lessons have been learned. Have been learned by her. Have you finished the report?
Second option.
No. C,
Has
ma'am.
the
Option
report
C.
been finished by
As the
you?
report has been finished by you.
Which option?
Has the report finished?
B
B or
option.
C?
B.
B.
Has the report been finished by you? Okay, please keep in mind that don't change the tense. So retain the tense. In passive verb morphology, you're not allowed to change the tense. Tense remains intact. Okay, only the verb form changes to passive. That's all.
Okay, ma'am.
Police have caught the thief.
No.
Has been caught by.
Has been.
Option A, ma'am.
A.
Thief has been caught by
Has
police.
been caught by the police. Okay, thief has been caught. So here we change have to has because of the change in number, right? The subject is now singular. Initially it was plural, right? We have changed it to has been because of that. But the change in the number is possible based on what takes up the role of the subject in the sentence, whatever the grammatical relation the subject with the verb is, right? Because there needs to be subject verb agreement. But don't change the tense in active and passive, right? You don't have to do that at all. Okay. What is this one? This is a question on adverb of degree, focus, comment, viewpoint. Okay. I think this should be. Have anything more? Oh, conditional you don't have. Figure of speech. Hmm. Okay, so there won't be enough time for all of this. But what we can do is we'll take up like some 10 questions from this one and then we can go to the figure of speech one. Okay. Okay.
Yes,
First
yes.
one. The juice was dash cold.
Extremely cold.
Too cold.
What is it? The juice was dash cold. Very cold.
Extremely cold.
The
Right,
juice
so
was
either
too double.
degree adverb is the one that you use. So you can say it was too cold, it was very cold, quite cold. Okay, anything that fits in the degree can go there. The train dash arrived.
Quickly arrived.
Lately.
Okay,
Just
it's an
arrived.
adverb of degree,
Lately, ma'am.
not degree, actually focus. Sorry. The train just arrived, right? If you're talking about focus, it just arrived. My work is dash over.
Got over.
Completely.
No, use an adverb.
Just over.
Completely.
Just
My work is just over. Something better than that.
My work is also over.
My work is also over. No, that's actually a very informal way. My work is also over.
Completely.
No.
my
Ma'am,
Almost,
about my work is about to
Almost, right? You can use the degree adverb. My work is almost over. Okay, almost over. What else do you have? The next one is you are running dash fast. These are easy.
Very
So fast.
fast.
Yeah, you're running too fast. You're running very fast, quite fast. The book was dash interesting.
Very interesting.
Very interesting.
surely interesting.
Very interesting, quite interesting. Uh, that building is dash old.
too
Too cold.
Yes, too old. She's walking. Okay, we skip that. They are all of similar kinds. We'll go to the eighth one. Dash, we could send astronauts to Mars. Now, this is adverb of viewpoint and adverb of comment, right? So you need to choose. What would you choose here? Comment or viewpoint for a
Scientifically.
sentence like this? Comment or
Bounce.
viewpoint adverb for a sentence like
Oh,
this?
sorry.
Viewpoint.
It's not
Viewpoint, right? A viewpoint, right?
viewpoint.
Okay,
Okay.
so dash, we could send astronauts to Mars. You can put in any viewpoint adverb which will fit there.
Probably.
Probably, okay, probably we could send astronauts to Mars. Okay, theoretically, right? You can say theoretically we could
Theoretically.
send astronauts to Mars.
Maybe will.
Maybe, no. Maybe doesn't qualify as a viewpoint adverb. Okay. Then
Technically,
ninth
ma'am.
one,
finally
Technically,
Sorry?
we could send Astronauts to Mars.
No, sorry, I did not hear the answer.
Oh.
Which one?
Finally could be there.
Finally, we could say no. Finally, we could.
Mentally, we are
Uh,
lost.
yeah. Ninth one, dash, we are lost.
Mentally, we are
Morally,
lost.
logically.
Yes, yeah, unfortunately, disappointingly, right? And this would be what will it be? Viewpoint or will it be commented?
Comment.
Comment, right? This is going to be comment. Comment basically expresses your judgments or opinions about something, and viewpoint, on the other hand, is something that gives you an informed perspective about it. Right? So that is
No, what was the answer for 8th one, ma'am?
eighth one is theoretically. Theoretically, we could send, or we can also say technically, we could send astronauts to Mars. Both are the 10th one, we have dash found the key.
Luckily.
Luckily.
Luckily found the key. Fortunately found the key. Right. Dash, he showed up late again.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, okay. Or anything. Okay, we're just only looking at few examples that comes up to us. But I think when we discussed it, I showed you a couple of examples which could be used. But, she dash submitted to the jury.
Recently.
No, not recently. She dash submitted to the jury. She confidentially submitted to the jury, right? Some of this we can
Logically.
understand from the context also. If submitting to the jury, it's not supposed to be known to others. So confidentially submitted to the jury, or you can also say she rightfully submitted to the jury. Okay. She cleverly submitted to the jury. All of that is fine. So I told you that there are a couple of adverbs which can function as both viewpoint adverbs and the comment adverbs, right? So confidentially is one such example. So if you say she confidentially submitted to the jury, it could either mean as a comment thing or it could also mean as a viewpoint thing. But when I say she cleverly submitted to the jury, this is comment. This is not a viewpoint. Okay. Right. I think that is enough. We don't have to look more into it. Let's look at this one.
All the comments are casual words, ma'am.
Yeah, they express opinions or judgments. Okay, so they are not basically an informed form of speech. When you say something is a comment, it's basically based on wild guesses. They are not on educated guesses, right? So that's why we call them opinions and judgments.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Identify the figure of speech. She sells seashells by the
Sibilance.
seashore. Yeah, there is is it sibilance? She sells
Yes.
seashells by the seashore.
Yes. Is sound
Yes,
is
no.
repeating.
She sells seashells, okay. But then you also have the interference of by the in between.
Only alliteration is restricted by
Yes.
interference, I
So a
guess.
more appropriate answer would be alliteration. Okay, than
In
sibilance.
alliteration,
If
there
I
should
simply
be not
say she,
interference.
just give me a moment, I'll confirm it and then you can talk about it. So she sells seashells. If this is where it ends, then you can go ahead and mark sibilance. Okay, not a problem at all. But if it is she sells seashells by the seashore, then it's more of a case of an alliteration. Okay, alliteration, two conditions. One is that the repeating sound should appear in the beginning of the word and it should be adjacent to each other, right? But if it is, the other way around. If it is just she sells seashells, then it's alliteration. If it is she sells seashells by the seashore, then it's sibilance. Okay? Yes, no questions?
Be sibilance.
Sorry? Okay, you need to understand the difference between how these things are used. So, see, between alliteration and assonance, consonance, and sibilance, the difference is that there is no adjacency requirement as far as your sibilants, consonants, assonance are concerned. No matter where the sound appears, the repeating sound appears in the given phrase or in the pair, it can be considered. The only thing is that it should be the same sound that gets repeated, right? So no problem there. But when it comes to alliteration, the condition is that the repeating sound should appear in the beginning of the word and the words must be placed adjacent, close to each other, next to each other. Okay. So if it is just she sells seashells, then will it be alliteration or sibilance?
Both.
Alliteration or sibilance? It can be both. No.
Alliteration.
Between these two, I don't mean both of this. Between these two, what is it?
Alliteration.
Alliteration, right? So if it is a case of the most appropriate answer would be that this is an alliteration, right? Because it also appears in the repeating sound is appearing in the beginning of the words and the words are placed next to each other. So this is the closest condition. Both the conditions are closest to the figure of speech called alliteration, right? But if it is something like she sells seashells by the seashore, then what is this? Is it sibilance or
Sibilance.
alliteration? Can it be an alliteration?
False.
No, it cannot be an alliteration because by the has interfered doing this one.
Yes.
So the alliteration part is gone. But it is a sibilance for sure. Okay. Between sibilance and consonants, what is it? Is it sibilance or consonants? Sibilance.
Sibilance is
More
most
appropriately sibilance, right?
Yes.
Consonant. Sibilance is a kind of consonant, but if you have an option between sibilance and consonants, then the answer has to be most appropriately sibilance. Okay. Second one,
Yes, ma'am.
it was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Antithesis.
Sorry? Antithesis? Is it antithesis or
Antithesis.
antithesis?
It is
right?
antithesis.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So structurally similar, contradictory ideas, right? It's not just contradictory or conflicting positions, but it's also grammatically or structurally similar. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. The grammar is same for both. Okay? Then, my friend's pet has kicked the bucket.
Metaphor.
Euphemism.
Hmm?
Euphemism or liter.
Has kicked the bucket is, yeah, you can say it's euphemistic or you can also say metaphorical. So the larger answer would be metaphorical. But between metaphor and euphemism, you can choose euphemism. Okay. Right. If I, no, but actually, kick the bucket is more metaphorical than euphemism. Euphemism is a very different kind of construction. So, because kick the bucket has no close connection with the, but when I say passed away still has got a, a little bit of resemblance to it. Kick the bucket is almost, it's a idiomatic expression. So you'll have to call it a metaphor. Okay. So my friend's pet has kicked the bucket is a metaphor. Now, if I don't eat soon, I am going to die of hunger.
Hyperbole.
Hyperbole.
Hyperbole, exaggeration, right? You are not wrong.
Liter.
Later, right? He was an onion. To understand him, she had to peel back the layers. He was an onion. To understand him, she had to peel back the layers.
Personification.
Personification.
No, not personification.
No.
He was an onion.
Metaphor.
Metaphor. Metaphor. Clear example of a metaphor. A direct comparison. He was an onion. So, okay. I thought his movies were better when they weren't so Hollywood. I thought his movies were better when they weren't so Hollywood.
Metonymy.
Metonymy, right? This is an example of metonymy
Yes,
because
yes.
substitution for movies made in North America, right? Movies made in North America are generally referred to as Hollywood in general. So, metonymy, substitution. That strawberry, next one. That strawberry cake was awfully good. Awfully good oxymoron. Awfully good oxymoron. Okay. This one is from the exam. I think the slides. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others.
Paradox.
Paradox. Right? Paradox.
Yes, it is a paradox.
Yeah. 10th one, it was the first. So it's a paradox because you have two opposing situations for two opposing sentences, but each one true in its own sense. So this is called paradox, right? It was the first, next one. 10th is it was the first real day of summer, and by the time she came back indoors, she was red as a tomato.
Wasn't simile. Simile.
Simile. Red as
Simile,
a tomato, as red as a tomato, simile, right? Indirect comparison. Now, mine is a long and a sad tale, said the mouse, turning to Alice and sighing. It is a long tale, certainly, said Alice, looking down with wonder at the mouse's tail. But why do you call it sad? What is a figure of speech here?
One.
Pun, right? Pun on the word tail, T-A-L-E and T-A-I-L, two different meanings, of the same word, right? So sometimes the both of the meanings could refer back to a homophone like tail and tail, but sometimes it is just the same spelling also. Like for example, if I have a sentence like, I am on the right side of politics. Okay, I am on the right side of politics. Which word is on pun here? I am on the right side of politics.
Right.
Right.
Right. So right would mean that I'm basically between right and wrong. So I'm always on the right side, not on the wrong side. And the other right would mean right and left, right? There are two wings of usually right when classified. So neither mean I'm in the right part of the politics, the right wing politics. So the second meaning is that I'm always on the right side, not on the wrong side. So this is also a good example. So sometimes the spellings, it could be both the words would be homophonic in nature with different meanings, but sometimes it could be like this, like a homonym where tail and tail has two different spellings, right? And two different meanings also. But the figure of speech in both the cases is a pun. Okay.
Yes.
12th one, last one, the floorboards groaned under the weight of each step.
Personification.
Personification.
Personification. Okay, personification. Okay, good. So I'm glad you have understood the figures of speech. Usually every time people would come with complaints on that, right? So I think it is good enough. A few clauses, I still see that there are certain hiccups here and there, but that's all right. It will, come to you eventually. Okay, so fine, I think. Good for today. All the best for your exams, and we'll see you after the exams for all the sessions later on. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you again.
ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Sure.
ma'am.
Thank you so much. See you again. Bye.